Chapter 617, Transaction. Floris's demeanor suddenly shifted, his expression turning icy and a malevolent smile curling upon his lips. His aura underwent a dramatic transformation. He raised his gaze, Lumien's dark hair and green eyes reflecting in his now ominous stare. Lumien's suppressed emotions, desires, and the haze surrounding him erupted like a volcano. This was a force even an ascetic's endurance couldn't withstand. Cracked. Lumien's body cracked, shrinking into a palm-sized mirror. The mirror shattered completely, fragments scattering across the ground. In the room diagonally opposite, Lumien materialized beside Franca, wearing a solemn expression. Had he not prepared mirror substitution beforehand, he might have endured a double explosion of emotions and desires. It resembled the same outcome when evil God heard the symphony of hatred's different melodies. Of course, if Franca hadn't been lurking nearby, if he hadn't readied mirror substitution, he wouldn't have used himself as bait to converse with Floris. Lumien seized Franca's shoulder, his voice deep as he uttered, "Let's leave this place first." He promptly activated the black mark on his right shoulder in an attempt to teleport away. Confronted with an adversary capable of exploiting his weaknesses and latent dangers, Lumien's initial response was to switch to support, utilizing his corresponding abilities from a distance. Franca would assume the role of the main attacker. However, considering Franca, a demoness of pleasure, hadn't indulged herself for a long time, he feared she might not resist the explosion of desire. It seemed prudent to retreat, regroup with others, and return later. At that moment, a voice alternating between masculinity and femininity echoed in Lumien and Franca's ears. "There's no rush to escape. I've changed my mind. I want to make a deal with you." A deal, something jolted in Lumien's and Franca's minds. After some thought, they chose to stay put. Simultaneously, Lumien sank his consciousness into his right hand, ready to activate the remnant aura of Blood Emperor Alistair Tudor. This wasn't meant to intimidate Floris, but if his emotions and desires were triggered again, Lumien could alert the police in time. Being one of the Fainapotter Kingdom's primary ports for trade with the southern continent and a key base for the Harvest Fleet, Port Kala undoubtedly housed at least one Grade 1 sealed artifact even without a demigod. Franca gazed at the wall and the air in front of her, questioning, "What deal?" Floris, dressed in a floral shirt, casually pushed open the unlatched door of the apartment and spoke in a deep, cold, and dignified manner. "Let me introduce myself, Nabordously, a demon." A demon, a genuine demon. The cost of using the authority holder's under-the-table transaction actually materialized here to make a deal with a demon. However, Lumien's acceptance of the captain's mission and our pursuit of Delilah are distinct matters. If we had opted to patiently wait a month or two before engaging with Delilah, instead of utilizing the authority holder's under-the-table transaction, what would have transpired today? Could there have been a so-called deal? Franca smiled in surprise, suspicion, and confusion. How can you reveal yourself as a demon? Shouldn't a true demon conceal their identity to lower our guard? The demon, identifying himself as Nabordously, clenched his right fist and pressed it against his lips. He smiled and replied, "A true demon is both demon in body and mind. I'll inform you that you're dealing with a demon, but refusal isn't an option. I won't obscure my identity to achieve my goals like the foolish ones." For instance, this man named Floris is well aware of the consequences of repeatedly reciting my true name through the notebook. Back then, that foolish warlock labeled it the love incantation, but he still couldn't resist the temptation and couldn't control himself. For demons, this gradually decaying soul that slowly descends into the abyss is the most delectable feast. The sensation of resistance and constant decay is as unforgettable as the finest wine. Lumien and Franca didn't disdain or ridicule Nabordously's unabashed and alluring depravity. Since a demon had spoken, there had to be a deeper motive. Moreover, Lumien couldn't be certain if Nabordously was a genuine demon or a self-proclaimed one. He couldn't verify if Nabordously was his actual name or if he had a different origin. Although the activation of desire aligned with the traits of a sequence 5 desire apostle of the demon pathway, it wasn't exclusive to demons. Lumien's symphony of hatred could achieve a similar effect. Franca grinned at the demon's incessant narrative and remarked, "That foolish warlock probably assumed your true name as a love incantation because of your cues. Is that really your true name?" "That's why he's foolish," Nabordisley replied with a faint smile. Lumion wasn't eager to rush into the transaction. Instead, he inquired, "How did you manage to convince Floris that the love incantation actually works?" Nabordisley casually glanced back at Floris's rented apartment and assumed a relaxed posture. He tried some other incantations from the notebook, and some of them worked. "He's just an ordinary person, yet he can cast an incantation like a warlock." Franca expressed disbelief. Nabordisley grinned. "I've heard a very reasonable saying, all things possess godhood. No matter how ordinary a person is, as long as they're willing to pay the corresponding price, they can create beyonder effects. All things possess godhood. Mr. K often says this when preaching." Lumion observed Nabordisley, the self proclaimed demon. Franca seized the opportunity to ask, "What price did Floris pay?" Nabordisley smiled meaningfully. "I already told you. The part where the soul gradually decays and falls into the abyss." Franca nodded thoughtfully. Lumion suddenly grinned. "If he hadn't paid the price, how could you communicate with us so easily using his body?" Nabordisley smiled back but remained silent. Lumion shifted the topic. "Did you have a hand in the deaths of those two adventurers who were investigating Floris?" "Consider it a bit of interest," Nabordisley replied, glancing around. He smiled and pulled a chair over, casually remarking, "You lack the necessary courtesy." "Because we never considered making a deal with you," Franca deliberately stated. "I won't make a deal with a demon." Nabordisley chuckled and said, "Although it's amusing for a demoness to claim she won't trade with a demon, I can assure you that I won't force you into a deal. I won't even hinder you from informing the Church of Earth Mother about Floris later. I differ from my inept peers. I prefer transparent trade, avoiding the convoluted legalese of contracts where terms and conditions are twisted. I'll make you choose to trade with me, even knowing the content and price." "I decline," Franca replied with a smile. "I refuse to entertain your deal." Nabordisley narrowed his eyes dangerously, but maintained his usual amiable demeanor. "You can listen first before deciding if you want to accept this deal. I won't boast that I can fulfill any of your wishes, but I can help you fulfill most of them. This is a promise from an ancient demon." "Ancient?" Lumion looked curious. "Have you heard of the ancient sun god?" Nabordisley's expression darkened subtly. "I'm aware. Can you tell me about him? The deity I believe in now seems to be the resurrected him." Lumion's lips curled up, revealing 2 rows of pearly white teeth. "This can be used as compensation for the transaction, but it has to be paid first before we fulfill the contract. Don't think of fabricating it. That would be blasphemy to my lord." Nabordisley fell silent. After a few seconds, he smiled and said, "As I mentioned earlier, I can't accomplish certain things and fulfill certain wishes. This is one of them. When one's humble enough, it's really difficult to win a war of words." Lumion sighed inwardly and turned to Franca, silently inquiring if she wanted to seize this opportunity to the table transaction. Franca hesitated for a moment before addressing Nabordisley. "Tell me about the deal first before I decide." Nabordisley chuckled. "A wise decision. I hope you can help me kill another demon's descendant. He resides somewhere in the Berserk Sea. Don't worry, demon descendants are cold, cruel, and bloodthirsty. He definitely meets the death penalty standard in your hearts." "Then why don't you do it yourself?" Franca clicked her tongue. "You seem quite powerful." "Is it because you're sealed? Or could it be that he can't leave the abyss and can only project himself onto a human like now, unable to maintain it for long?" Nabordisley replied calmly, "Any abnormal movements from me will attract the attention of the other demon. The reward for this transaction is that I fulfill one of your wishes. It's a predetermined wish that I can fulfill." "Can you help us digest the potion in our bodies?" Lumion probed. Nabordisley shook his head. "I won't lie to you, I can't do it. The digestion of the potion is a personal matter. Of course, I can create conditions and opportunities to indirectly help you digest the potion as soon as possible. But whether you can seize those opportunities depends on yourselves." Quite honest, Franca muttered silently. Suddenly, she revealed a bright smile. This deal tempts me, but I need a reliable and powerful witness.